The letter arrived on a gray morning. The sky over Pittsburgh was the color of old tin. Matias sat by his window. He watched the rain fall on the empty street below. It had been a year since Clara was gone. The apartment felt too quiet now. It was full of her things, but her laughter was missing. Matias was only 31 years old, but he felt as old as the dusty furniture around him. He did not know what to do with all his empty days. Each morning he woke up, and the sadness was there waiting for him, a heavy blanket he could not shake off. A thin envelope lay on the small table by the door. It had come in the morning mail. The postmark was from a place he had never heard of. Garfield County, Colorado. He did not know anyone in Colorado. He picked it up slowly. His name, Matias Crane, was written in careful, looping script. He opened it with a dull curiosity. Inside, a letter from a lawyer explained something unbelievable. A man named Silas Grimwald had passed away. He had left his entire estate to Matias. The estate was a cattle ranch, a large one, in the remote highlands of Colorado. Matias read the name again. Silas Grimwald. The name was only a faint echo in his memory. He had met him once, maybe twice, as a small boy. His mother had known him, but she never spoke of him much. He was a distant relative, or perhaps a friend of the family from long ago. Why would this man leave him everything? The lawyer's letter had a condition. Matias had to travel to the ranch. He had to live in the main house for 1 full week. Only then could he decide to keep it or sell it. If he did not go, the ranch would be sold, and the money would go to the state. The idea was strange. It was like something from a storybook. Go to a faraway place, live in a stranger's house. For a moment, Matias thought of throwing the letter away. It was too much trouble. His grief was a heavy stone, and he did not want to move. But then he looked around the silent apartment. The memories here were sharp and painful. Clara's favorite teacup was still on the shelf. Her book was on the nightstand, a ribbon marking her last page. Maybe, he thought, a new place was what he needed. A place with no memories. A place to be alone, but in a different way. He decided he would go. The journey was long and tiring. Matias packed a single suitcase. He put in simple clothes, a few books, and a small framed picture of Clara. He left the apartment in the care of a neighbor. He told her he would be back in a week or two. He did not know if that was true. He took a train from Pittsburgh. The train rattled across the wide, flat plains of the Midwest. He watched the cities turn into towns, and the towns turn into farmland. The world outside his window grew bigger and emptier. The sky seemed to stretch on forever. He was leaving his old life behind, click by click of the train's wheels on the track. From the train station in Denver, he took a bus. The bus climbed higher and higher into the mountains. The air grew thin and cool. The green hills of Pennsylvania were gone. Now there were tall, jagged mountains with snow on their peaks. They looked like giant teeth biting at the sky. The bus twisted and turned on narrow roads. Matias felt small in this vast, wild landscape. He thought of Clara. She had always dreamed of seeing the mountains. He felt a sharp pang of sadness. He was living a life she would never have. He was going to a place she would never see. He finally arrived in a small town in Garfield County. The town was little more than a single street with a few wooden buildings. There was a general store, a saloon, and a small hotel. The air smelled of pine trees and dust. It was quiet here, a deep and lonely quiet he had never known in the city. The people he saw on the street looked at him with curious eyes. They were strangers, and he was a stranger. He knew he did not belong here. This was a different world, a harder world. The sky was a brilliant, endless blue, so different from the gray skies he had left behind. The lawyer's letter had told him to hire a taxi to take him to the ranch. There was only one taxi in town. It was an old, dusty car parked in front of the general store. The driver was a man named Virgil. He was old, with a kind, wrinkled face and hands that looked like they had worked hard his whole life. Matias showed him the address written on the letter. Virgil nodded slowly. "The Grimwald place," he said, his voice a low rumble. "I can take you. It's a long way out. Not many folks go out there." Matias put his suitcase in the back and got in. The long journey was almost over. The drive to the ranch took more than an hour. The paved road soon ended. The taxi bumped along a rough dirt track. The track wound its way higher into the highlands. The town disappeared behind them. There were no other cars, no other houses. There was only the wide, open land. The highlands were a sea of rolling hills covered in dry yellow grass. Patches of dark green pine trees clung to the slopes. The wind blew hard here. It whistled through the grass and made a lonely sound. Matias looked out the window. He had never seen a place so empty. The landscape was beautiful, but it was a harsh, lonely beauty. The sun was bright in the clear sky, but it gave little warmth. The mountains stood like silent giants in the distance. Their peaks were sharp against the blue. Matias could see for miles and miles. There was nothing but land and sky. He felt like a tiny speck in a vast, empty world. The city, with its crowds and its noise, felt a million miles away. Here, the only sound was the wind and the crunch of the tires on the dirt road. It was a place where a person could get lost forever. Virgil drove slowly, his hands steady on the wheel. He seemed to know the road well. "Not much grows up here," Virgil said, breaking the silence. "The soil is thin. The winters are hard. You have to be a tough kind of person to make a life in these highlands. The wind never stops. It can drive a man crazy if he's not used to it." Matias listened. He could feel the truth of Virgil's words. This land was not friendly. It did not welcome people. It simply existed, old and unchanging. It demanded strength from anyone who dared to live on it. As they climbed higher, the air grew colder. The sun began to sink toward the horizon. It painted the sky in shades of orange and purple. The long shadows of the hills stretched out like dark fingers across the land. The beauty was breathtaking, but it was also chilling. Matias felt a shiver run down his spine. It was not just from the cold. It was a feeling of deep isolation. He was going to a place at the edge of the world, a place where he would be completely and utterly alone. He wondered if he had made a mistake coming here. Virgil seemed to sense Matias's unease. He began to talk about Silas Grimwald. "Old Silas," Virgil said, his eyes on the road. "He was a strange one. Lived out here all by himself for more than 30 years. He came here with a wife, a long time ago, but she left after a year or two. The loneliness was too much for her, people say. After she was gone, Silas just stayed. He kept to himself. He hardly ever came into town. Maybe once or twice a year to buy supplies he couldn't grow or make himself. He was a real recluse." Matias listened closely. He tried to picture this man, this Silas Grimwald, a man who chose to live in this empty place, all alone. "Did you know him well?" Matias asked. Virgil shook his head. Nobody knew him well. He didn't talk much. He was polite enough, but he had a look in his eyes, a faraway look, like he was seeing things that weren't there. He would buy his flour and his salt, load up his truck, and head back up here. He never stayed for a drink or a chat. He just wanted to get back to his ranch, back to his solitude. Virgil continued his story as the taxi bounced along the rough track. People in town had all sorts of stories about him. Some said he was hiding from something. Some said he was just plain crazy from the loneliness. He had a big library, they say, filled with strange books. Not novels or farm manuals. Books about stars and old history and things most folks don't bother with. He spent his nights reading, they say. Just him and his books and the wind howling outside. He didn't seem to need anyone else. The taxi slowed as they came over a rise. Below them, in a shallow valley, Matias could see a collection of buildings. "There it is," Virgil said quietly. "The Grimwald Ranch." Matias felt a knot tighten in his stomach. A recluse, a man with strange books and a faraway look. This was the man who had left him this ranch. Why? What connection did they have? Virgil's stories did not make the situation any clearer. They only added to the mystery. Matias was not just inheriting a piece of land. He was inheriting the strange, lonely life of Silas Grimwald. The ranch was nestled in a wide, shallow basin. It was protected from the worst of the wind by the surrounding hills. A large, 2-story house stood in the center. It was made of dark wood and stone. It looked sturdy, built to last. Near the house was a big barn, a few smaller sheds, and a series of fenced-in corrals. A dirt lane led from the main track down to the house. The place looked deserted. No smoke came from the chimney. No animals moved in the corrals. The only movement was the tall, dry grass swaying in the wind. The silence was heavy and complete. As they got closer, Matias could see that the ranch was in good repair, but it was also neglected. The fences were strong, but the paint was peeling from the barn doors. The sheds looked solid, but weeds grew high around their foundations. It was as if someone had taken great care of the place for a long time, and then suddenly stopped. It was a place waiting for someone to return, waiting for life to begin again. Or perhaps it was just a place that was slowly being taken back by the wild land around it. The setting sun cast long, dark shadows that made the whole place look sad and lonely. Virgil pulled the taxi to a stop in front of the house. He helped Matias with his suitcase. "The lawyer left the key under the stone pot by the door," Virgil said. "He told me to tell you that." He looked at the house, then back at Matias. His kind eyes were full of concern. "Are you sure you'll be all right out here by yourself? It gets awful dark at night, and awful quiet." Matias nodded, trying to sound more confident than he felt. "I'll be fine. Thank you for the ride and for the stories." He paid Virgil, who hesitated for a moment before getting back into his car. Matias stood alone and watched the taxi drive away. He watched its red taillights get smaller and smaller until they disappeared over the hill. Then there was nothing. Just him, the silent house, and the vast empty highlands. The wind whispered through the eaves of the house. It sounded like a sigh. He felt a profound sense of isolation, deeper than any he had ever known. He was truly alone now. He took a deep breath of the cold, clean air. He found the key just where Virgil said it would be. With a heavy heart, he put the key in the lock and opened the door to his inheritance. The inside of the house was dark and cold. It smelled of dust, old wood, and something else. Something faint and strange, like dried herbs. Matias stepped inside and closed the heavy door behind him. The sound echoed in the sudden stillness. He fumbled along the wall until he found a light switch. A single dim bulb flickered on, casting long, dancing shadows across a large living room. The room was filled with heavy, dark furniture. A stone fireplace stood against one wall, its hearth black with old soot. A thick layer of dust covered everything, making the room look like a forgotten tomb. He walked slowly through the downstairs rooms. There was a simple kitchen with an old-fashioned stove and a wooden table. The cupboards were mostly empty, except for a few tins of food and some bags of flour and sugar. Everything was neat and orderly, but untouched. It was as if Silas Grimwald had simply walked out one day and never come back. Matias felt like an intruder, a ghost walking through another ghost's home. He ran a finger over the dusty surface of the kitchen table. He was touching the life of a man he barely knew, a life lived in complete solitude. He found the study at the back of the house. It was the most interesting room. The walls were lined with bookshelves from floor to ceiling, but these were not ordinary books. Matias scanned the titles. There were books on astronomy, geology, and ancient history. There were also books on folklore, mythology, and alchemy. He saw titles like The Secret Language of Stars and Forgotten Rituals of the Highlands. It was the library of a scholar, but a scholar of strange and hidden things. On a large wooden desk in the center of the room, an open ledger lay next to a dried-out inkwell. Matias picked up the ledger. The last entry was dated just a few weeks ago. The handwriting was the same careful script that was on the envelope he had received. The entries were not about cattle or ranch finances. They were notes, strange and cryptic. He read one line. The stars are in position. The veil is thin tonight. Another said, I hear the whispers in the wind. They are getting closer. Matias felt a chill run down his spine. What was Silas Grimwald doing out here? What secrets were hidden in this silent house and in these strange books? The mystery of the place was deepening with every step he took. As evening fell, the house grew even quieter. The deep silence pressed in on Matias from all sides. In the city, there was always some noise. The hum of traffic, the sound of neighbors, the distant wail of a siren. Here, there was nothing. The silence was so complete that it felt like a physical weight. It made his own breathing sound loud and harsh. It made the creak of a floorboard under his foot sound like a gunshot. He had wanted to escape the memories in his quiet apartment. But this silence was different. It was not empty. It felt watchful, as if the house itself was holding its breath. He tried to distract himself. He made a simple meal in the dusty kitchen. He ate standing by the counter, feeling too unsettled to sit down. The food tasted bland. He missed Clara. He missed the easy comfort of sharing a meal with her. He missed her voice filling the quiet spaces. Here, his loneliness was amplified. It echoed back at him from the dark corners of the house. He was not just alone. He was isolated, a single point of life in a vast, sleeping landscape. He felt a growing sense of dread, a feeling that he was not welcome here. After eating, he wandered back into the study. The strange books seemed to call to him. He pulled one from the shelf. It was a heavy book, bound in old leather. The pages were filled with detailed drawings of constellations and strange symbols. He could not understand most of it, but he felt a strange pull, a curiosity that was stronger than his fear. Who was Silas Grimwald? Why did he spend his life studying these things? And why, out of everyone in the world, did he choose to leave this place to Matias? There had to be a reason. There had to be a connection he did not yet understand. His grief for Clara was still with him, a constant dull ache in his chest. But now another feeling was growing alongside it, a powerful sense of mystery. The questions about Silas and the ranch were a welcome distraction from his own pain. They gave his mind something to focus on, a puzzle to solve. He felt a flicker of purpose for the first time in a long time. He was no longer just a man lost in his sorrow. He was an explorer on the edge of a discovery. The loneliness and the strangeness of the place were frightening, but they were also exciting. He was standing on a threshold and he did not know what lay on the other side. Matias chose a small bedroom upstairs. It had a simple wooden bed and a window that looked out over the dark, rolling hills. He did not bother to unpack his suitcase. He lay down on top of the covers, still in his clothes. Sleep did not come easily. The silence of the house was now filled with tiny, unfamiliar sounds. The wind moaned around the corners of the house, a low, mournful sound. The old wood of the house seemed to groan and settle, making soft tapping and creaking noises in the walls. Each sound made him jump. His city ears were not used to the language of an old house in the wilderness. He closed his eyes and tried to think of nothing, but his mind was racing. He thought of Clara, her smile, the warmth of her hand in his. The memories were so clear, yet so far away. Then his thoughts would turn to Silas Grimwald. He pictured the old recluse sitting in the study below, reading his strange books by lamplight while the wind howled outside. What was he searching for in those books? What whispers did he hear in the wind? The house felt full of the old man's presence. It felt as if Silas had never really left. Matias felt like a guest in a house that still belonged to its master. At some point, he must have fallen into a light, troubled sleep. He dreamed of vast, empty landscapes under a sky full of unfamiliar stars. He dreamed of whispers that he could not understand. He woke up suddenly, his heart pounding. He thought he had heard a noise from downstairs, a soft thud, like a book falling to the floor. He sat up in bed, listening. The house was silent again. The only sound was the faint whistle of the wind. Was it just the house settling? Or was it his imagination, playing tricks on him in this strange, lonely place? He lay back down, but he did not sleep again. He watched the moonlight move across the wooden floor. The fear was still there, a cold knot in his stomach. But something else was there too, a stubborn resolve. He had come this far. He could not turn back now. He would not let the silence and the shadows scare him away. When the sun came up, he would not stay inside the house. He would explore the ranch, the barn, the hills. He would walk the land that Silas Grimwald had walked. He had to understand. He had to know the secret of this mysterious inheritance. The night was long, but morning would come. And with the morning, he would begin his search.